Alright, I am back in the chair. Let's talk about the mid-range segment. Now, the mid-range segment of smartphones is the widest, the most populated segment of the smartphone market. It is chock full. I mean, between 2017 to sometime around last year, the mid-range segment was the most hotly contested part of the market. But these days, smartphone manufacturers and SoC manufacturers have adjusted or shifted their attention all the way up to the higher end, which is going to be in the next video. So today we're talking mid-range. My last video I talked about the low end as the entry level and the budget segment. If you haven't seen that, please somewhere on the top of your screen, you probably find it there. If it's not there, please make sure to go through the channel and check that out. I think that would be very important, especially for those of us who are working with very tight budgets, so that we know what we are buying when we are going to buy entry level or budget smartphones. But today I want to talk about the lower, I want to talk about the mid-range in general. Now, the mid-range, the term mid-range refers to smartphones that are somewhere in between the high end and the low end. These phones aren't high end, these phones aren't low end phones. So they are stuck somewhere in the middle. So these phones that are stuck somewhere in the middle are phones that we call mid-range. But the term mid-range is actually very vague, because the mid-range, since it is filled with a lot of phones, it's populated with so many phones, that means that these different phones have very different characteristics, very different abilities, and very different functionalities. The only thing that is common about these smartphones is that, yes, they are all better than low-end phones, and they are not as good as the high-end ones, but that is where all the similarities stop. That's where they end. And it is very important that you know this, because when people say mid-range, we have several subdivisions in the mid-range. Is it lower mid-range? Is it the standard mid-range? Is it upper mid-range? Or is it premium mid-range even? Where does it fall in? For example, if somebody goes out and says a phone with Unisoc T618, for example, it's a mid-range phone. One could also call a phone with a Dimensity 7200 SoC a mid-range phone as well. So this marketing is not marketing. I don't know if you get that reference. So that's why it's important for you to be able to tell which one is that, that's the mid-range, where in this one. Because when they tell a lot of people that this is a mid-range phone, and then like they finally figure out that high-end, low-end, mid-range in the middle, and they feel comfortable. So like, and a lot of companies, they will do this. They will take a phone that is lower mid-range and they'll price it as much as a phone from a higher mid-range category. But people don't really get this, and it's a mid-range phone, they just paint it over, and then people don't really get it. That's why you see people who would buy a mid-range phone with a Snapdragon 685, for example, and then they will be shocked when the Helio G99 phone is actually taking their own smartphone to the cleaners. So I think it's very important that we get this clear. So mid-range phones, usually you can discover, or you can find out, or you can decipher which phone is a mid-range phone, usually by looking at the SoC as well as other attendant features. But the key thing here is to note the SoC. It's very key. So therefore, if you are going to buy a phone and then you see, SD680, SD685, Unisoc T618, these are at the very bottom of the mid-range, very bottom. In fact, dare I say, one could even consider them budget phones in a way, as smartphone tech gets better. But at this point in time, this is 2024, we are going to still call them mid-range, because that's what they still are, lower mid-range. Now, even within this lower mid-range bracket, if you go further up, you would still see SoCs like the Snapdragon 720G, Snapdragon 732G, right? Snapdragon 4 Gen 1, 4 Gen 2. These are still lower mid-range, as Dimensity 6020, Dimensity 6080, Helio G95, G96, G99. These are all lower mid-range SoCs. So if you are buying a phone with any of these processors, and usually, more often than not, they will be paired with either 64 megapixel cameras or 108 megapixel cameras. 5000 mAh battery, 33 watts of fast charge, 6 to 8 gigs of RAM. these are standard lower mid-range phones. So you've got to keep this in mind. So these phones are going to do way better than low-end phones, but there's still going to be a limit to their ability. Yes, they won't be able to record high quality, like really high quality video. Most of them would only be able to record video at 1080p at 30 fps, for example. Yeah, they would only be able to play, you know, most games at mid settings, and then they probably will not be able to handle AAA titles. When we say AAA titles, we're talking about Fortnite, for example. We're talking about Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone, Grid Auto Sports, for example, and, you know, some flight simulators here and there. So if they actually do manage to be able to, you know, like install these, if you're able to install these games at the best low settings, but for the rest of the other native titles you get, normally you can play those at mid settings, eFootball, Call of Duty, PUBG, and like. So when you get up from there, when you move up to what we call the standard mid-range, and that's where you now see SoCs now, like the Dimensity, the 7200s of this world, the Snapdragon 7 Gen 7S, 7 Gen 1, 7S Gen 2, right? SoCs like that, 7 Gen 3, those ones you standard mid-range, and then you could even go even further to the upper mid-range, the bleeding upper mid-range. Some people try to split the upper mid-range into two, you know, upper mid-range and premium mid-range, but they are mostly still the same thing, where you see SoCs like the Dimensity 8200, 8300, right? 8300. Yeah, 8300, Snapdragon 7 Plus Gen 2, and some older flagships. You would find some older flagships up there at the upper/premium mid-range segment. So that's why when people say mid-range, and then you have a phone that uses a former flagship SoC or the equivalent of a former flagship SoC, you see, you know, upper mid-range SoCs like former flagship killers like Snapdragon 870, for example, 870, and then you have Snapdragon 680 or 685, and somebody saying they're all mid-range. No, they are not all mid-range, because they offer different levels of performance. Like, the higher you go, the better the performance you get. The higher you go, the more stuff you can do with your phone. So recently, right, I was recording a video out, okay? I was recording a video out, and somebody was like, wow, this thing looks so sharp. I hope I can be able to get this your phone. I'm looking at it now. It's not going to cost me maybe at least 150 now. This your phone, 150. And I'm like, 150? 150. I think I've done a video about matching budget to expectations, and it didn't really get a lot of views because it's not a review video. So the review videos I've done, they tend to get the best views and stuff like that. So the idea of this video is so that you would know that this one is mid-range, and that the mid-range is wide, and these are the different levels of. If you to make things easier, you can just simply head over to my website, inquisitiveuniverse.com, and then type top 100 smartphone processors, or you can even do it from a search engine, preferably not Google, but you can use Google if you want, and type in top 100 smartphone SoCs, and you see Inquisitive Universe there right near the top. And then you see that if you enter into that page, you see that I've arranged it very, very neatly so that you know that this SoC, if you're using this SoC, you're going to get a certain level of performance. Is it upper mid-range performance? Is it premium mid-range performance? Is it lower mid-range performance? And the like. You get that? You do. Yeah, so that's that. So that's all for the mid-range. The mid-range is somewhere in between the high ends and the low ends, and it offers you, very sweet middle point where you get, the best price to performance, a matchup. Let's put it like that. Let me use that term, matchup between price to performance, where you get really decent performance, really great cameras, without having to splurge or without having to sell a body part in order to buy a high-end phone. Yeah, that's just basically what the mid-range is all about. So if you've seen this one, please do make sure to check the previous one I've done on low end, what are low end phones, and how to know if you are getting a low end phone, so that maybe you could avoid it, or you could make peace with the fact that, hey, I'm getting a low end phone and I'm okay with it. And then please stay tuned for the next one, which is going to be high end devices. So yeah, with that, we've come to the end of this video. Thank you very much for coming. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Small actions like this that help small channels like mine grow. Let's keep the word going. You see the big people doing reviews or more. See, let me drop the English. One on one, come closer. They will not tell you these things, because if they say these things, they could spoil market for somebody. You get that? They will spoil market for person, and they are beholden to their masters. And if they spoil market for their masters, they won't get deals, they won't get endorsements, they won't get perks. So let's get the word out. So that people will not go and buy low-end phones thinking it's mid-range, or they will not go and be downgrading thinking it's an upgrade. My name is Jeffrey. Thank you very much for coming. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.